So this is just a simple box that I like to make. They're pretty easy to make, and they make good practice, and they actually sell pretty well at craft shows. So I'm just using a piece of 3" by 3" by 4.5" long spindle blank. This one happens to be spalted maple. So I'm starting by turning it into a round cylinder. Always move your tool rest closer as you start turning down the wood. Alright, so now that I have it pretty much rounded down, I'm going to come in with a skew because I want to cut a tenon on each side. So I'm just going to come in with a peeling cut. Just stop and take a measurement. I have a set of calipers that I set to my jaws. It's always good to measure frequently so that you don't take too much wood off. Alright, so now that I have my diameter that I want, I'm just going to take one more pass in to make it long enough. And then I'm just going to repeat the same process on the other side. Alright, so now I have the tenons cut on both sides. The next thing I need to do is decide where I am going to part for the lid. So I'll make this the body because it's a little bit wider. So say the lid maybe about 3/4 of an inch tall for this box. Okay, that should be good enough to be able to see the marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop just short of parting it all the way off, and I'll just come in with a saw. Okay. And cut the lid off with it. My tool rest out of the way. Alright, so I got my two pieces. The next thing I need to do is get the lid mounted on so that I can hollow out the inside of that. Alright, so now that I have the lid mounted, the first thing I want to do is come in with my skew. I'm going to shrink down the diameter of this lid a little bit. Okay, so that's close to the size I want the lid to be. So the next thing I'm going to do is come in with a spindle gouge and hollow the inside of this out. Alright, so I'm just going to hollow this out to about where I want the lid to be. Alright, so now that I have the bulk of the material cleaned out, I'm going to come in with a square scraper and square off the edges. Okay, so that's it for rough shaping out the lid of the box. I just want to come in with a little bit of sandpaper and clean up the inside, because once I flip it, I won't be able to sand the inside with the lathe on anymore. Alright, so now we pop the lid off and get the body of the box mounted on. Alright, so now that I have the body of the box on, the first thing I want to do is actually get the lid mounted. So I'm going to use a skew just to cut a tenon that'll fit inside that lid snug. Okay, you got a set of calipers set. I think that might be good. Just gonna switch to a skew that's got a straight edge on it just to square this tenon off. Okay, so that's what we want, so that the lid will stay on while we shape the outside of the box. Alright, so I just brought my tailstock up for a little bit of extra support, and I'm just going to go ahead and shape the entire outside and have this done. Alright, so that's it for the outside of the box. I just need to clean up the top now. So what I'm going to do is position my tool rest and take out as much of that tenon as I can before moving the tailstock away from it. Alright, so now that I have it all turned down, I'm going to just use a saw to cut the nub off. Then we'll come and move the tailstock completely out of the way. And that last little bit, I'm just going to rely on the friction fit from the lid to clean it up. So since there is no tailstock support and it's only really friction that's holding this on, you want to take lighter cuts. Just give the outside of the box a quick sand. Okay, and we're gonna hopefully pop the lid off. And what I'm going to do is, after I hollow the box out, I'll just take a little whisper cut off of there to make it better. Alright, so now that the outside's done, I just want to come in. I'm using a Forstner bit to hollow out the inside a little bit. So I'm just going to come in with a depth gauge just to get a quick measurement. It's about halfway down. Okay, so that should be deep enough for this box. You want to give a little bit of room at the bottom because we're going to part this off of the tenon. So you can hollow this out with whatever tool you want to use. You can use a bowl gouge, spindle gouge. For stuff like this, I prefer to use a gooseneck hollower. Like this one. Makes it easier for getting into this wider part of the body through the narrow opening. So what I'm doing these cuts with this tool, I'm actually using my fingertips to kind of curl and pull the tool in as I pull it out. Okay, so that's about as much as I want to hollow the inside of this box out. These scrapers make a nice clean cut as long as you do an even pull on pulling out, so it really doesn't need to be sanded on the inside. So my final step is I want to part this off, but I want to put some finish on this first. So the one thing I want to do is just come in with my parting tool and just part in a little bit. Just to define the bottom of the box. And now I want to actually come and move my tool rest out of the way. Sand this tenon down just a little bit to make the lid easier to come on and off of it. Okay. Alright, so now that I made the lid a nice loose fit, I'm going to use just a piece of paper towel to hold it in place while I apply the finish. So I'm just going to use a sanding paste to smooth it out a little bit, and then come back with my finishing wax. I have links down in the description below on where you can get the sanding paste and the finishing wax. Okay, so now that it's applied, we're going to turn the lathe on. Go to a clean part of the rag, and we'll turn the speed up good. Okay, now that it's polished down, I'm going to come in with my finishing wax, which is a mixture of beeswax, carnauba wax, and walnut oil. Just spread a small amount around everywhere. I'm going to turn on and just use some friction to smooth it out. Clean part of the bag to take off any excess. Alright, so the last step, bring my tool rest back up and grab my parting tool, and we're just going to part this all the way off. So there you have it. It's a simple little box. Pop the lid off down to get that paper towel out of the way. With a nice fitting lid. And it grain matches.